Welcome to Season 7 of the Excel Still More podcast. I am your host, Chris Emerson, and I am here to encourage you in your faith and help you strengthen your relationships. Today's episode is sponsored by Statewide Mortgage. Tyler Cain has over 20 years of experience, and he can help you with a variety of home mortgage needs. You can reach him today at 813-380-8487. Thank you so much for listening in today. Let's get started. Good morning and welcome to the Excel Still More podcast. I'm so thankful that you've joined. I have a few things to share today in greater detail than in the past, things that I have mentioned on occasion over the last year that have been somewhat testing and trying, but ultimately God is always at work. He's always at work for good. He's always trying to bring about results that glorify His name. Sometimes it means really wonderful situations where you just get to rejoice your way all the way through it. And other times it's taking time in challenges to be reshaped by God. And I want to talk particularly today about how you handle the most difficult times. Maybe it's difficulty in the way others treat you, or maybe just where you are in your life. Could have to do with health or mourning loss or any number of things. The advice we give today, you've heard many times over. We're just going to look into how it might work and how you can make it work for you, but the advice is simply to give it time. Time is our helper. It's our ally. We have a short supply of it, and it is fleeting, but it is precious not only in that we only get so much to use in this life, but that each passing moment can help with understanding, clarity, healing, and things just move their way towards better in the name of Jesus. So before I get into particulars in my own life, I want to present it to you in this way. Think back a little ways to some of the most difficult moments of your life. Moments when the reality of the situation hit you and you thought, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't see any way this can work out or work out well or work out ever. And maybe this is the beginning of the end. As I mentioned in episodes in recent weeks and featured in a worry-free living class we're teaching here in Lindale, you cannot control those emotions in that moment. Without giving that time, if you were stuck in just that shock moment mode, then there would be no relief. But with each passing moment and day and week comes a whole series of good things, from mentally processing things to beginning to see what God might be doing. But here's the way I want you to think of it. If you can look back on one of those moments and you could pick up the phone right now and call yourself and say, hey, it's me, it's you, it's however many months later, a year later, I just want to tell you some things, but let me start with this. Give it some time. Don't panic. Don't respond too quickly. Don't try to fix it in 5 seconds. Just wait. Be calm or begin to calm down, because you will calm down. You will come off of this and good things will happen in its wake. Unless you complicate things in this moment with decisions that you're not ready to make, you need some time to make these decisions. You need time to process what's happening right now, because you don't see all of it. I'm here in the future, and I'm looking back, and I now see a great deal more that it took time to learn, to comprehend, and to appreciate. One of the goals of this episode is the next time something comes straight out of left field and catches you square on the jaw, your first thought is, I've been through things like this before. And the same advice I would give myself back then, if I called them now, I need to receive in this moment. We'll talk in the back half about some practical ways you can do that. There are all kinds of great things we've been learning from this Stop Worrying and Start Living book by Dale Carnegie, which I think we featured a few weeks back. But I want to start by telling you a few things about my life in the last year and lessons that I have learned about the value of time. It was almost 1 year ago, I think right at the end of February of last year, that someone released a 39-page paper about me, effectively saying that I was a false teacher, including a lot of my quotes put in what I would say is the worst possible light, and then it reached all kinds of conclusions that I didn't intend. And I just wake up one Tuesday morning and I get calls from 3 different states where this had been sent out in a mass email. The guy had sent me the document just a few days earlier, and I asked him if we could talk about it and study about it, and then it got sent out to everyone. That was incredibly frustrating. That gentleman knows me. He has my phone number, but he never called. He never asked any questions. He didn't try to help me one-on-one. He didn't ask for clarity or any of those kinds of things. Without any contact with me at all, out goes this open letter. And I got to tell you, that was tough. I mean, you read this thing, and I'm getting these emails and calls, and I'm thinking, what does this mean? And the answer is, I don't know. Does this mean that I will no longer get to preach the gospel? Does this mean it will cost me my job? Does this mean I'll lose friends? What does this mean for my work? And then questions came up like, what should I do about this? Should I quickly sit down and write a big rebuttal to some of this? Should I reach out to the gentleman, which I ultimately sought to do? And in rushed all of these initial decisions, which almost completely at this point looking back were bad ideas. But that's the thing. You're crazy emotional in that moment, kind of scared. And when we have fear, we end up doing sort of ridiculous things. And I will tell you that there were only a couple of things that I did in those first few days, a couple of calls that I made, and I put out a Facebook post kind of trying to at least get ahead of it a little bit. And really, even now, I look back and think I shouldn't have even done that. I should have just waited. Just let God do things here and see how it goes. But I tell you what would have been the best if that first day I could have gotten a phone call from myself 1 year later, which is about right now, February of 2025. I would have loved to hear that conversation. I think it would have gone something like this. Chris, give it time. I know this seems shocking, but if the behavior was not becoming of a child of God, that will come out over time. If that gentleman has things he needs to learn about the kingdom and love, those lessons will be presented to him. You, by the way, have some things that you can learn too. There are some things in that document that maybe you should think about and speak differently about, and you're going to learn. You're going to make some tangible changes to some of the things that you say and present, and that's going to be good. And so if nothing else, through this process over time, it's going to make you wiser and sharper. You're going to lose a few friends, but they're people that you weren't particularly close to, and you'll take solace in the fact that it's just their decision not to talk to you at all that leads to ongoing issues. Because, Chris, of the 400 or so phone calls, emails, Facebook messages, text messages you will engage in over the next 12 months, practically everyone who loves you enough to communicate with you will begin to understand you, and you them, and you'll learn from each other, and your fellowship will be stronger. You're going to get some gospel meetings canceled, mostly from elderships that aren't accusing you of anything. They're just not wanting to be involved in any of it and just trying to keep peace among their membership. But it's just going to open the door to some really fantastic places and people, churches that will fill in those gaps and give you new opportunities. Particularly for me, it's some places out west that I got to go preach. I would tell myself, look, it's February. By the end of the summer, you will be thankful that that document got written. You're going to eventually see that it kind of pulled out some of the secret stuff that others were doing and put it out in the public so that you could deal with it one-on-one with whoever wanted to talk and then kind of put it behind you. By a year from now, everything will be better. Not just better than it is today as you see this email blasted across the country, but better even than it was a year before that. I would tell myself to beware of emotional reactions, pray a bunch, spend time with your spouse and your closest friends seeking wisdom, and just wait. But of course, I was not able to make that phone call at the time, and that made it harder than it should have been. I should have looked back in the past and relied on the way God's closeness helps along the way. But I'll tell you this, I'm going to use that experience to prepare for the next difficult thing that comes. Hope is a really awesome thing. Hope says God is at work towards better, And ultimately, everything ends amazing for children of God. One of the things I learned from that event and many others is things are never as bad as they seem, but you can't change the way you feel in that moment. But time will be your friend. I want to give you a couple of other examples, and this was more recent, and I have to introduce, or I can't remember if I brought some of this up a few weeks ago, maybe reintroduce two of the greatest people, most wonderful friends, Alyssa and Wayne Grissom. Last month, a couple of things happened in their family and in mine. On their side, Wayne got really sick. He had some blood loss internally that the doctors could not identify, and he was in the hospital, and things got really, really scary. And on a Saturday, Summer and I had the opportunity to go and just visit with them and talk about that and pray with him. And at the same time as they were going through that, we were going through a little something as well. I do remember mentioning about Nick, my son, having some issues. Earlier this year, he developed some involuntary tics, in the eyes and head and neck, and things were really accelerating to where it was there for a little bit, like all day, every 5 seconds. And so we obviously thought the worst and researched and did all these things. And on that particular Saturday, we were at one of his basketball tournaments. So we were watching Nick play, and when he was active and moving and shooting, it wouldn't happen. But as soon as he paused for even a few seconds, it was just pretty ongoing. So we're driving to the hospital, and Summer and I are, pretty distraught. We don't really know what to do. And we get there, and we start talking to Wayne, who was in good spirits that day. He was feeling pretty good, even though there was a lot of uncertainty. And Alyssa said something to us, and Summer and I have discussed it many times since. She works for a school in the Lufkin area, and she works with teachers who work with special needs kids. And very often those teachers come to her, and they have had it. They are anxiety level through the roof, and they don't know what to do. And she doesn't just say, give it time, but she does say, chances are your anxiety is at its highest because you are at the peak of this problem. This problem maybe that's been building with some of the kids, or maybe something that sort of acutely comes out of nowhere. Right now, you are at your highest level because it is as well. And very often she tells teachers, if you could just give it 10 days, just don't do anything. Don't change anything that you're doing. Give yourself time to calm down, and also give the child some opportunity to kind of see what's going on and see where they are. Very often you'll realize that everything was at its peak and it starts to come down. Now, her advice is wise because even if the conditions don't change, you still begin to calm down over time. But often both things happen. And that was just so great for Summer and me. We talked about it all the way back. We thought, we don't know. We don't know if this is going to be forever. We don't know if it's going to get worse. But let's just assume that everything is pegging out at an 11 right now. And it's just got to come down a notch from here. Maybe things are at the peak. And here's what's really great about that advice and that story. We're several weeks past that now. But by 10 days later, Wayne had gotten better. That's the main thing. I love that he's doing so well. They didn't know. There was questions over whether they were going to have enough blood in Texas to keep giving this guy. And then things started to settle. And he started to feel better, and they're past it. That doesn't always happen for everyone, but they were coming to a point of being able to handle it better every day, which is great. Just sort of give it time, and it improved. And that's what happened with Nick, too. He's still got some of these things, and we did some research, and he'll probably deal with it throughout his teenage years, sort of a hormone puberty thing. And we don't know what may flare up in the future, but so far, several weeks later, that Saturday was as intense as it got. And it was as intense as we got. And everything has worked off of that peak down towards normalcy ever since. It's kind of incredible if you give things time, how you can even learn to live with things, like little things that he was dealing with before were really drawing our attention. And now, we're kind of at peace with it. This is what we're dealing with, and we're going to wait this out and so forth. And things are just better, and we're smarter, and we're talking about it better and dealing with it better. And really, we've even worked into that phase where you have an appreciation for the trial, where you realize that this all leads to a more cherished love for each other and more trust in God? If I've talked about these verses and these ideas before, then forgive me, but let me go back to 2 Corinthians chapter 1, the language of the Apostle Paul here. He says, "We do not want you to be unaware, brethren, of our affliction, which came to us in Asia, that we were burdened excessively beyond our strength, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, we had the sentence of death within ourselves, so that we would not trust in ourselves, but in God, who raises the dead, who delivered us from so great a peril of death, and will deliver us, he on whom we've set our hope, and he will yet deliver us, you also joining in, helping us through your prayers." Months after being at death's door for the cause of the gospel, he said, I get it. I get why God was doing that. Time has revealed that to me so that I would trust more in God and less in myself. And I would put my hope in him, and I would see how prayers work and become more faithful and a better example to others. This is that consider it all joy when you encounter various trials. Almost impossible in the moment, but practically inevitable if you give it time. Now, in the meantime, in these last few minutes, there are some practical things that you can do in the midst of hoping in God and not reacting in the exact moment and letting things calm down, considering it coming off the peak, however you want to approach it. And I want to cite something from this How to Stop Worrying and Start Living book by Dale Carnegie in the 1940s. We just taught this the other day, and I thought it was really helpful. When you're facing a problem, and that problem just shows up, or maybe it builds to this crescendo, you do need to take a moment and think, okay, what is the worst possible reasonable outcome? Now, we don't want to dwell on that all the time, but the truth is, in the midst of our fear, that's what we're thinking about anyway. But we're often very irrational about it. I know in all the things I've cited for you today, my first indications of what it meant were completely unfounded and irrational, so I want to get control of that. When I am scared and it's happening in the moment, stop and think, if this problem persists or doesn't get better or God doesn't immediately do something incredible, what is a reasonable, poorest outcome that could take place? And again, the first reason you do this is to put some reasonableness on the negative because we really get carried away. But then comes step 2, which is acceptance. If that's how this goes, we will be okay. God is with us. If this document means I'm no longer able to work here in Lindale, we will be okay. If Nick's situation doesn't change, if Wayne's situation doesn't change, we will find peace in God. We will stand with the Lord. We will be supported by God's followers. Our hope is not dismayed, and God will be building something in us through it. From there, as time begins to pass, you just get up every day and do little things, just nice little proper things to try to outpace that poor result. And usually that takes time. So just a little something today. Don't go crazy. Don't pour every single ounce of your time into solving this problem in 48 hours. You're just going to keep your anxiety pinned through the roof. Just give it some time and do something each day or each week. And almost every time, that worst case scenario does not come to pass, sometimes because God is at work for good, out of your control, and sometimes because of your calm, methodical, careful pacing forward actually facilitates a better outcome. Much better than a flame out in the moment. I think a good example is with that paper last year. My immediate stuff that I did the first 2 days, I just wish I hadn't done. But I tell you what I did do, I set aside Mondays. I said, look, anytime during the week people reach out and want to talk, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to set up all day on Mondays to make calls, answer emails, study with people, try to understand. And I don't remember how many Mondays that was, but it just sort of paced out. There was a little bit of stress each week. You know, that's why we want to just do something immediately and get rid of all the stress. But that's not really the way life builds towards better. I lowered the anxiety and I sort of stretched it out. But with each Monday's calls and interactions, you know what happened? Things got better. And I learned more about myself and others. And I experienced this paced out support by people who loved me. And time, as it so often does, even though it gets such a bad rap, is fleeting and unpredictable, time was my friend. And you know what else is my friend? Friends. Really wonderful people who love us, who want to help us, who will sit with us and talk with us and walk us through it. You've got people like that in your life, and when they go through things, think about the advice that you would give them. You can't call yourself a year ago and walk yourself through it, but I would imagine you've walked others through it. And the same advice that you would give them, like maybe this is the peak and everything will come down from there, be sure to also tell yourself. Be prayerful, be patient, know that you are loved, and give it time. Thank you for joining in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment and share it with a friend. Speaking of friends, I just want to thank once again John Cunningham and the Cunningham Financial Group for sponsoring this podcast. If you have financial planning needs, give him a call today, 205-326-7364. And always remember, whatever you do in the name of Jesus Christ, excel still more.